Hi ladies, good afternoon. It is Sarah Shipton here from Scrapbooking with Sarah, and I'm coming live to you today on Tuesday, October 29 with this week's Technique Tuesday and also our weekly scrapbooking challenge. So I am super excited to share with you all because this is the last layout that we will be doing for October, featuring this particular paper suite, and I have finally finished using all of my stickers left over from my scrapbooking workshop kit. So for the month of October, I have been showcasing the lovely Florals scrapbooking workshop kit, which also coordinates with the Floral Charm Suite collection. Okay, so this beautiful suite collection and scrapbooking workshop kit, as its name suggests, has all of these stunning floral patterns, really nice, deep, rich tones. So I've really enjoyed sharing that with you all during October. And I have to say, it has certainly challenged me a little bit with my scrapbooking this month, because these deep, rich tones are not particularly scrapbooking or papers and colours that I would use in my scrapbooking. So it has definitely challenged me and pushed me outside of my comfort zone a little bit. But let me tell you, am I thrilled with these results? 100%. Hi Sonia, hi Mel, thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to see you guys live. So let's get into this pattern now. I've actually got my scrapbooking layout in the memory protectors at the moment. So I'm just going to start by sharing. I've got a flip flap on top of this memory protector. So the layout is called Make Time for Fun. And if you know me and my family, we love to make time for fun. So these photos were actually taken in Melbourne on a trip away for our daughter's birthday. This was 2 years ago. In 2023, this was for her 22nd birthday, and they invited us to come and share some time with them, my daughter and her fiance, in Melbourne for her birthday. So let's take the layout out of the memory protectors, and that will actually reduce a little bit of the glare. I wanted to start by sharing them with you so you could see the protector the layout in its memory protector with the flip-flaps on top. Okay, perfect. So we are creating a double page scrapbooking layout this week, and I am using the bottom border title pattern, which is on page 35 of your Reflection Scrapbook program. This is an older how-to pattern book. We are going back to basics, and let me tell you, I actually have seen probably the most engagement from those of you in my Facebook group since we have gone back to basics with our scrapbooking patterns. So really enjoying sharing and teaching and demonstrating these particular patterns with you. So a bottom border title, as the name suggests, you've got the option to put a title at the bottom of your scrapbook page. I have not, as you can see, but I have actually done a little title here using my leftovers from my scrapbooking workshop kit. The really cool thing about the scrapbooking workshop kits is that you get sheets of exclusive paper in the kit. So this particular title was from a 12 by 12 sheet of designer series paper that is called a cut apart. So you can actually cut apart the paper, and it has got different sections on the paper that you can cut down in different sizes, and you can use them on your scrapbooking layout. So some of them are patterns, some of them are like this, kind of little sentiment boxes, some of them are journaling boxes. So you can use them in any way, shape or form that you like. And I have cut this down to make my title, Make Time for Fun, and I've used some leftover stickers here as a little cluster here on my scrapbooking layout. So I've finally finished all of my stickers from my scrapbooking workshop kit. So for your layout, you're going to need 2 sheets of coordinating designer series paper or cardstock. I have used designer series paper here. This paper, I did actually purchase a second packet of designer series paper on top of my scrapbooking workshop kit. So when I've created the 3 layouts from the scrapbooking workshop kit, I will take the leftovers from the kit, and I will bulk it up with the coordinating paper and cardstock to create additional layouts. So I have used, this is a Blackberry Bliss Designer Series paper. You can see you've got this beautiful pattern on one side and another more detailed floral pattern on the other. So if you look at the patterns and you think, oh, this is probably a little bit too much for me, I love that the Designer Series paper gives you another option where you can have just the color and the pattern is very muted. So not as busy or stand out. And then you can coordinate that with other papers in your pack or left over from your scrapbooking workshop kit. Okay, so for your paper dimensions, the first piece you're going to cut will be this strip that runs along the bottom of your scrapbooking layout. So it's going to be 12 inches in length. It will go from the left to the right of your page. And you're going to cut this at 2.5 inches wide. And then when you stick that onto your base page, it's going to be stuck 1/2 inch up from the bottom. And you can see that I have run that all the way along from the left to the right here. I've just matched that up. So it's like a mirror image of your layout. The second piece of cardstock or Designer Series paper is going to be this piece here that runs behind these other pieces of cardstock in your photo. So this is piece B. And you're going to cut this piece that runs behind at 9 by 6 inches. So you could just use one sheet of Designer Series paper. If you cut it in half at 6 inches, you can then cut the remaining piece at 9 inches. And you're going to put this down next. It's going to be flush on the inside of your pages. And you're going to stick this piece 1 inch down from the top, okay? Now, if you wanted to save your paper, because you're obviously going to cover that whole 9 by 6 inch piece, you could actually just trim it off a little bit here, and then you could trim off a little bit here. So your width is going to be at 6 inches, and you could probably cut this piece at 2 inches and this piece at 1 inch, okay? Which is actually what I did to save my paper, because this Designer Series paper is left over from my scrapbooking workshop kit. So I didn't have a lot of this paper left over, okay? If you've got lots of paper to use up, and then cutting it at 9 by 6 inches will be fine. Now, the next piece of paper that you're going to cut is going to be this large piece that runs here through the middle, and that's going to be cut at 7 by 12 inches. So you will need 2 sheets of coordinating cardstock or Designer Series paper. I've gone with Mossy Meadow. I've cut inch from the top, okay? And then you're going to need another piece of coordinating cardstock or Designer Series paper, and that is going to be stuck on top of this piece here. You're running this also through the middle, and that's going to be measuring 5 by 12 inches. So you could get away with 1 sheet of cardstock or 1 sheet of coordinating Designer Series paper to run it through the middle here at 5 inches by 12 inches. So you can see the thing that I love about the scrapbooking workshop kits, but also the Sweet collections, is that everything's coordinated. And in fact, when you purchase the scrapbooking workshop kit or the Designer Series paper, it actually tells you what colors coordinate. You get this product card in your pack, which measures 12 by 12. I actually just cut that down and stick that on the front of my bag. So if I was to pull this kit out, you know, in a year or two's time to recreate with these remaining leftovers, I've actually got the coordinating cardstock colors or inks or markers, all of that's on the top of my card here. So I can use that as a reference point at a later time down the track to create with, okay? So that's just a little tip there for you. So that is all your paper dimensions you're cutting. Now, as I gave you the tip with this piece here, you could also, because you're going to be covering all of this piece of cardstock, you could cut that a little bit shorter. If you wish to not make it so cardstock or paper heavy, you have got that option, or you just might not have enough remaining leftovers to be able to use all of that paper. So when you run your photos through the middle here, you've got a couple of different suggestions for your patterns. The master pattern has cut the photos at 4.5 by 3.5, 3 photos running left to right. I've actually opted for 3 by 4 inch photos, and so I've got kind of like this collage strip that's running through the middle here. I've got 1/2 inch either side. I've just put that running through the middle and left 1/2 inch of cardstock at the top and the bottom. So the really cool thing here with your photo orientation, you can see here, this was the memory protector with the flip flap over the top. I've got a 4 by 6 inch landscape photo in the middle, so it's basically just doing the math. I've got 2 smaller photos here on the outside measuring 3 by 4 inches. You could put a landscape photo here and then another landscape photo here if you wanted to. You could even have, well, actually that would be your landscape photo either way. You could have a landscape photo here and then 2 3 by 4 inch photos here. So it's really just cutting the measurements of your photos to best suit the photo. That's also going to add up to your 12 inches running across the side here. For my right-hand side layout, I had these portrait photos. I've got these ones here on top of the flip flap. I had these 3 portrait photos that I really wanted to include. So this gorgeous one of Kayla and EJ, I've got the purple with the highlighted light here under the bar, which just ties in really nicely with the Blackberry Bliss. And then I had another gorgeous photo of the 2 of them there together. And then one of Darren and I in a portrait format. But I just love all of these floral botanicals that were hanging from the roof of, this was like a floating kind of like restaurant and bar on the Yarra River in Melbourne. And so when I actually did a search on my device for photos to scrapbook with this, I searched for flowers or florals or botanicals, and these photos popped up. And can we just get an amen for how gorgeous the colours in the photos really coordinate with this designer series paper. We've got some of the warmer tones here, which have been brought up with the Timid Tiger. And then we've got the purple in the lighting here, just the warmer tones here in these photos also. The purple in the lighting just was gorgeous with the Blackberry Bliss, and the warmer colours here in the photos in the bar. So it just ties in really nicely. So because I had these 3 portrait photos here, I wanted to include them on my layout. So I started by having them right up against the edge of my outside of my layout. And then I had room here for a 4 by 4 and a 4 by 4. So 4, 8 and 12. So I did think about putting another landscape photo through here, but that wasn't going to work with the math. So again, in terms of your orientation of your photos, you can actually do whatever's going to work best for your particular photos. You have got some other samples here where we've got a 4 by 3 and then 3 smaller photos that they've cut down to 2.5 by 2.5. That's going to give you the opportunity to showcase more of the paper. I wanted my focus to be more on the photos. Now, I did do a whole very detailed explanation of flip flaps in my Technique Tuesday. I think it might have been last week. And I ran through how I decide which of my photos are going to go on the top of my layout. And so you can see here by putting this 4 by 6 inch landscape photo in the middle of the 2 people photos, it just helps to break that up. And then I've got these more fun candid photos underneath the flip flap, which come in with the title Making Time for Fun. And we've got this little sort of collage succession here. And then some selfies of Kayla and EJ and Darren laughing on top or underneath the flip flap, I should say. So I always try to put my best photos on the top with the flip flap. And then you can see here it doesn't look as similar having those all on the front as well. So just a little tip there in terms of deciding which photos we're going to go where. And if you've not worked with flip flaps before, or you're not sure how to best showcase or feature your photos, be sure to watch that video back on my YouTube, Scrapbooking with Sarah. So we've got a 4x4 inch photo here. I've got my journaling box here. So journaling is a big part of including on my scrapbooking layout. Now, some of you might recognize this because I actually taught this technique in a Technique Tuesday back in September. We did first and second generation stamping. This is on the Petal Pink cardstock on the lighter tone. And then I've stamped over the top with Mossy Meadow and a stamp set called Everyday You and Me, which is currently in the last chance section of my online store. So I actually created this as a 4x6 inch journal box. And last week I shared with you how I cut a 2-inch strip off of the bottom of it for my journaling box on last week's layout. Well, I had this left over remaining and it fitted perfectly here with the 4x4. So I love that when I'm sharing my techniques with you and demonstrating them with you, they actually get used in a layout a little bit later on in the month or on another scrapbook layout that I am going to put into my album. So you can work out the orientation of your photos that best works for you. You just want to keep in mind your math and measuring that out at the 12 inches from left to right. So I hope that is helpful for you. So in terms of my technique for this week, I've actually worked with the Braided Trim, which is a complementary embellishment that coordinates with the lovely florals and the Floral Charm Sweet Collection and coordinating scrapbooking workshop kit. I did actually include this on a layout back in September with my photos, and I wanted to use it today as an embellishment but feature it on my layout here. So I've opted, it's got this gorgeous petal pink color, and I've opted to actually run this through my Mossy Meadow cardstock. I've opted for both the lighter tone of the two-tone cardstock in Mossy Meadow and also in Petal Pink. And then I have run my Braided Trim through this Mossy Meadow section just really to break it up a little bit, but also add some dimension and some texture to my layout. You can see that really adding that Braided Trim really helps to elevate my layout as opposed to just having plain cardstock running through there. So I'm going to demonstrate this to you today. You can see that I have cut the Braided Trim a little longer than the 12-inch width of my scrapbook layout, and then I've just flipped that over the side and I have stuck that down. So we are going to have a little bit of a play with that today, and then I want to talk to you about adhesives and just share some different tips of different adhesives for you that you can incorporate into your scrapbooking. So I've got some Mossy Meadow cardstock here that we're going to use. I'm going to turn that over so we've got the lighter tone we're going to use as an example today. I've got my Versamat here as well, so you want to make sure you might have a Stampin' Up! Glass mat. This is my Versamat that I had from my time with Close to My Heart that I love for my scrapbooking because it's a perfect fit for 12 by 12. And then all I did was my Braided Trim was just lay it out over the top of my cardstock that I wanted to stick over the top. I've got my snips scissors here, and I'm just going to cut that a little bit longer than the 12 inches, okay? So you can use this Braided Trim on cards, obviously scrapbook layouts, little gift bags, and so forth. And then because I have actually been winding and unwinding this Braided Trim and holding this out and displaying it, I just found that there was one side of the Braided Trim that seemed to be a little bit more, I guess it's this opposite side, it's the back side of it, that was a little bit more stand out. Obviously it's going to stick down better if I pop it face down, but I'm actually going to put my adhesive on this back bit here. So you could use your glass mat for this so you don't end up with adhesive everywhere. Now there's a couple of different adhesives that you could use to stick this Braided Trim down on your scrapbook layout. You've got the fine tip glue pen, which is a clear glue. And then there's also the Tombow multi liquid glue as well. Okay, now the thing I love about this adhesive is that you've got a pen tip or a fine tip at one end, and then you've got a broader tip at the other end. So I'm going to run through some different tips of different adhesives for you, but I actually opted to use this liquid glue yesterday to stick my braided trim down, and as you can see, that is not going that is not going anywhere. Now, I don't want you to worry about using this adhesive on your scrapbook layout either for sticking down your embellishments, because whilst this does come out white, it is actually going to dry clear. Okay, so I did have a little bit of excess adhesive leaking through yesterday, but now that's dried, I can't see it, it's completely clear. So don't be too concerned about that. Okay, now the really cool thing about this adhesive as well is that you can use it as either a permanent or a repositionable adhesive. So if you want it to be repositionable, you only want to apply a moderate amount of glue to your embellishments and then allow it to completely dry before you then position your ribbon or your trim onto your layout, and then you can reposition it as needed. For a permanent bond, which is what I would suggest with this braid, and I've also kept it away from my photos as well. Okay, so whilst the product says that it is photo safe, I'm just not a fan of wet glue on the back of my photos, admittedly. So I do prefer to use just an adhesive runner or a tape runner as opposed to like a wet glue or a sticky glue pen as such. So for a permanent bond, you want to apply the glue onto your braided trim and then stick it down straight away while it is wet. And that's what I've actually done for this particular layout. So let's get some adhesive on the back of this braided trim. I'm going to do it this side up. So this is always tricky to do with the camera, so excuse me if I get my head in here a little bit. Now I'm just going to start with my adhesive pen. Oh, see, oh, there we go. See, if you, that is a great example. This is why I love doing this stuff live and in real life, because I'm human and that stuff happens, right? So that is a great example of like that excess glue. You can just grab your adhesive and you can just drag that along the braided trim, okay? So I'm just going to run my adhesive along the braided trim. I'm not going to go right to the edge for now. I'm going to leave a little bit either end, because I'm going to do those bits after, okay, that are going to fold over my scrapbook layout. So I've got my trim like so. Now obviously this would be on a 12 by 12 inch scrapbook layout. I'm not putting my adhesive on the end of that either, because I need to be able to keep that clean to be able to turn that down and stick that over. So I can line that up with where I want it, so it is somewhat straight or even, and then I'm just going to apply some pressure to that braided trim, and you can see that that is bonding pretty much straight away because the glue is still wet. Okay, so oh, perfect. I love it when it all works especially when I teach you guys like live or in person, right? So I'm just going to now, so you can see that stuck down really nicely to my cardstock. I'm going to turn this over, and then I'm just going to pop some adhesive onto the back of this bit of braided trim, and then we're going to bend that over my cardstock and just hold that in place for a moment or two. Now, the thing with the braided trim, obviously this is going to come out thicker when you bend it over the edge of your scrapbook page, so it does make your layout a little tighter to get into the memory protector. But once it's in the memory protector, you're not going to be really taking your layouts in, out, as such. Well, I do move my layouts around if I'm working with like a D-ring album. I prefer to work in a D-ring album as like a sort of work in progress album, and then I move them into their post-bound album when they're ready to go into their home, their permanent forever home, I would say. And this particular layout, it will just go in my family album. I don't actually make separate albums for my kids anymore because they are now 24 and almost 21. So my 24-year-old, she makes her own scrapbook albums now. And I'm not really sure that my son is going to pick up this particular legacy, but I will say that he loves, even though he pretends that he doesn't, he loves looking at his layouts and me sharing them with his friends and his girlfriend as well. So just look at that. Is that just not perfect or what? It's all worked out gorgeous. I hope you love this. Susan, hi. Susan, how are you? Hi, Emily. I hope you guys love seeing this today. So that's just worked out perfectly. And then what you want to do is just set that aside to make sure that that dries really nicely before you then slide your scrapbooking layout into your memory protector. So if you end up with a little bit of glue on your Versamat or your glass mat, I have like a pack of baby wipes on hand, and I just will take off any wet glue off of my mat before that dries, because it's much easier to get it off when it's wet. Or you might prefer to use your glass mat. I did invest in one of the glass mats, and I definitely will see a use for it, but I found it too tricky to use for my traditional 12 by 12 inch scrapbooking. So I will find another use for that. Now, I want to refer you, we actually had a really great chat about adhesives at my scrapbooking workshop on the weekend, and the topic came up about how there's just so much choice and there's so much to choose from, and I don't know what adhesive to use for what. I want you to make sure that you have got your annual catalogue handy, because inside your annual catalogue, towards the back after the Creativity Your Way section, you have this fantastic resource for all things adhesives. So it's on page 112 and 113. And Stampin' Up! Absolutely has the right adhesive for every project that you want to work with. It's important to note that the adhesives are permanent and they're acid-free, but there's different adhesive for different projects. So I just want to share some of my favorite adhesives with you that I use in my scrapbooking, because making sure that I'm using the right adhesive, especially for my photos and papers, is really important to me. So with this resource guide, you've actually got little icons. And so in the square of your featured adhesive, the icons there actually indicate which adhesive is best for the project that you're working on. So I mostly use cardstock and paper as a scrapbooking, as I've just demonstrated there. From time to time, I do use ribbon. I use lots of die cuts in my scrapbooking. I very rarely make 3D projects because it's just not my jam. I'm a traditional 12 by 12 scrapbooker and memory keeper. And I've been doing that literally since I was in middle school. And then, of course, lots of embellishments, okay? So a couple of my go-tos, 100%, the very first thing that you're going to need is your tape runner, your adhesive runner. And Stampin' Up! Have both a Stamp and Seal and then a Stamp and Seal Plus. So the Stamp and Seal is a light blue cartridge and the Stamp and Seal Plus is a dark blue cartridge. The best thing about these adhesives is they're interchangeable. So if I run out of one and I don't have the other in stock, the cartridge is the same size, regardless of which refill actually goes into it. So you can purchase your adhesive runner straight up with the adhesive already in there, and then you can purchase refills for your runner depending on your preferred one. Now, I was having like one of each on the go, but I will admit that my Stamp and Seal Plus is my preferred adhesive. The Stamp and Seal costs less to start off with, so your initial investment is $14 for the runner and your refills are $10.50. Your Stamp and Seal Plus is $21 for the initial investment, and then your refills are $14. Now, I have used both, and my preference is for the Stamp and Seal Plus. It is a personal choice, so I want you to know that you do what feels best for you. But the reason I prefer this particular one is that it's very hard to see in the video, but the adhesive is actual individual strips of rectangles. So as you're running the adhesive, actually, let me grab that bit of cardstock that I just had here, and I can just demonstrate this here for you. As you're running your adhesive, you press it down, you roll it towards you, you can lift off. I find that the break in the run of the adhesive is much easier because they're individual rectangular strips, okay? The Stamp and Seal, I don't have one open. You would use it in exactly the same way. And in fact, there are step-by-step instructions on the back of your packaging, which tell you how to use it. It will take a little bit of getting used to because the cartridge might be bigger than the adhesive runner that you've used previously. However, I find the Stamp and Seal, the break in the adhesive, I find it easier because of those individual little rectangular pieces. The Stamp and Seal is just one long piece of adhesive runner, okay? So if you are someone that is like just will be really like fast with putting your adhesive on, you do need to be diligent in using this. You can't just kind of like dab it on and pull it off. You do need that very consistent light pressure and slow use of the adhesive onto the adhesive, onto your cardstock, sorry. And when you finish the application, you just release the pressure and pull back, okay? I do find that if you are someone that is, like if you just use your adhesive quickly, you will struggle with this one because if you're not like really diligent in stopping that run of the adhesive and when you go to lift it, it actually just pulls straight off the cardstock, okay? So I do find my Stamp and Seal Plus better to use. You want to press it down, you want to roll it towards you, break the run and lift it up, okay? So it's not like a dot runner. The dot runners, you could just be like boom, 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 and it's done. You do need to be a little bit more diligent and it will take a little bit of getting used to, but I have persevered with it and I actually love it, okay? Now, the difference between these two with your scrapbooking is that this one, the reason it's called a Stamp and Seal Plus is that it is more heavy duty, okay? Whereas it'll have like an instant bond. So if you are someone that's very particular with liking things all straight and neat, which, you know, I do too, but I don't get too bogged down in it. I don't get my ruler out and be measuring things and all that kind of jazz. This is an instant bond, whereas your Stamp and Seal, whilst it is also an instant bond, this is more repositionable, whereas this is like a heavy duty adhesive, okay? So that's just a little bit of a couple of tips for you with the difference between the two. You might like to get one of each and try and see which one is more suited for you. I find that 9 times out of 10, once my customers try my Stamp and Seal, the Stamp and Seal Plus, they do prefer this adhesive over that one, okay? But it is a personal choice. My second most favorite adhesive to use with my scrapbooking are my Stampin' Dimensionals. Now, these are self-adhesive foam mounts and you get quite a lot in a pack. So these are kind of like your larger size. There's a pack of 300. And then you've got these mini dimensionals. So I have one of each, obviously, because some of my embellishments are small and others you need quite a lot of dimensionals. In the mini dimensionals, you get 720 in a pack, and they're both the same price at $7.50 each, which is fabulous. So you can see here that I've used dimensionals to pop this embellishment cluster up. So the larger ones, I would have put one in each corner and then a couple on either side and some in the middle. Same for the stickers. I've put some dimensional, actually no, I've just stuck that straight over the top of the ribbon. And then here where I've done my journal box, I've actually stuck this up on the dimensionals as well, just to kind of break it up between the photos and just really lift that and elevate that. You can see here I've stuck this sticker right on the scrapbook page, but then my sentiment sticker over the top using the minis, okay? This one the other way around, I've got my sentiment sticker flat and then my love heart over the top with a Stampin' Dimensional. So they are my second favorite go-to adhesives for my scrapbooking. The dimensionals, you will want to have some of those on hand. Now I've run you through the fine tip glue pen and the multi-purpose liquid glue. When I demonstrated this last week, I had a few of my customers invest in those. The next one is your mini glue dots. These are just peel and stick dots. So these come out on a roll. There's little glue dots here. You can just peel them off and stick them on. I like to use my crafting tweezers to take these off, or you can use your, oh my gosh, your take your pick tool. You can use the spatula edge of your take your pick tool to lift your adhesives off of your run there. So a whole box of those. These are great for your, I mean, I don't fuss around with these with cardstock and paper because it would just be too time consuming. I would be using my Stamp and Seal Plus or Stamp and Seal. I use that for all of my papers, my cardstock, and of course my photos, and some embellishments, unless I am wanting to create the dimension with my scrapbooking, and then that's when I would use the dimensionals. So these mini glue dots are great for embellishments mostly. So you might use these for twine or for buttons, maybe acrylic shapes. You might use these on the back of loose sequins, would be really handy as well. So that's what I love to use my mini glue dots for. The other adhesive that I love is the adhesive sheets. So you can make your own stickers, DIY stickers. And as you can see here, I would have demonstrated this in a previous Technique Tuesday. I love to use my adhesive sheets when I am creating titles for my scrapbooking. So rather than cutting out these letters and trying to stick adhesive on the back, like these adhesives on the back of these tiny little letters, using your adhesive sheets for your titles or even other die cuts that you've got, you can turn any of your die cuts into stickers with these adhesive sheets, and you are going to have a pack that's going to last you forever. So I have actually done a Technique Tuesday on these before, so have a look through my YouTube because I demonstrated these and I just love them. So I use them a lot in my scrapbooking. You get 12 sheets for 20 bucks, so really great pricing there. And then the other fun adhesive are the foam adhesive strips. So these are like your dimensionals, but if you've got long strips of scrapbooking paper or cardstock that you want to elevate on your layouts using the foam adhesive strips, and sometimes with really big sticker titles as well, I would use my foam adhesive strips on these too. So if you're using these on the back of your stickers, you can actually use your little anti-static pouch, which I don't, oh yeah, your little anti-static pouch. If you rub the back of your anti-static pouch onto a sticker, it will take all the stickiness off the back of your sticker, and you can replace it with your foam adhesive strips as well to stick your really big titles down. And last but by no means least, if you are working with the kits collection, then 9 times out of 10 you will get some tear and tape adhesive in your box to create your kits. This is tearable tape, so it's double-sided. You literally roll it out, stick it down on the back of your photos or your cardstock, and then you tear it to the length that you want, and then you pull the backing off. So I don't use this a lot, admittedly, in my scrapbooking, but if you find, some of my ladies find the cartridge too tricky for them to use, then your tear and tape adhesive, long strips of this on your scrapbooking papers or cardstock will be super helpful for you. So I hope that those tips that I've shared with you today about both using adhesive and ribbons on your scrapbooking layouts have been helpful for you. I cannot wait to see what you create this week, ladies, with your scrapbook layouts. And I hope that you have enjoyed my tips for using these different types of adhesives on your scrapbooking layouts today. I can't wait to see what you all create when you post your patterns in our Facebook group. Have a great week, everyone, and I will see you for next week's Technique Tuesday. Bye for now.